Good evening. Welcome to a special report of Talk with Antonio. I am your host, Antonio. Well, it was bound to happen. Today, on August 15th, 2023, Donald J. Trump and 18 allies were indicted in the Georgia 2020 election case. They were charged for trying to change the results for Donald Trump to stay in power. You know, it's just like, sorry if I sound like, again, the allergies are acting up again. So, like right now, I'm reading there's a lot of reports. This was from MSNBC. Georgia's RICO law has ensnared mobsters, musicians, and now MAGA Republicans. It says here, Georgia's racketeering law is often used against underprivileged black suspects. Fannie Willis' use of it against Trump and a company is a defining moment. This is from Jahan Jones. With his new charges in Georgia, former President Donald Trump joins a diverse group of defendants who have been ensnared by the state's Racketeer Influence Corrupt Organizations Act, better known as the RICO Act. The state's RICO law, also known as colloquially, has been used against various defendants since 1980, a decade after the federal RICO law was enacted. The list includes everyone from mobsters to musicians to teachers to now Trump and company. In Georgia, prosecutors can bring RICO charges against anyone found to have committed or aided in at least 2 crimes intent on helping in, quote, enterprise. It's just like, just reading this is just like, it baffles me what's going on right now, ladies and gentlemen. And Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis' affinity for RICO is no secret, as I wrote last August. Around that time, Willis said at a news conference that she is a fan of RICO because it allows her to tell jurors a full story. And I quote, "I'm a fan of RICO. I've been told people that, and the reason that I am a fan of RICO is I think jurors are very, very intelligent. Some people don't want to do jury service, but once they get there, we really find that they're good citizens there. They're very smart, they pay attention, they take these matters serious, but they want to know the whole story. They want to know what happened," unquote. Willis has used the law to prosecute alleged street gangs, establishing a track record that includes RICO cases against popular rap rivals Young Thug and YFN Lucci. Her office brought RICO charges against 8 members of an alleged gang last week, and Willis was also involved in the RICO conviction of several Atlanta teachers charged with a cheating scandal involving standardized test scores. Whoa. That's a pretty big track record from this lady. But even before Willis's rise as a prosecutor, the law repeated use against black defendants has led to criticism that disproportionately used to portray loosely affiliated groups of black folks as organized crime syndicates, which allows prosecutors to tag people with more serious charges that they do face otherwise, if charged as individuals. And as Christina Lee wrote for Atlanta Magazine in June, the law also poses some logistical issues, and I quote, "Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis boasts of having more RICO indictments in the last 18 to 20 months than the city has seen in a decade. Critics say that this comes at a cost. RICO trials are expensive and time-consuming, contributing to a case backlog and as defendants await trial, overcrowding at Fulton County's jail." Some of that criticism has come from Drew Findling, an attorney who has defended Atlanta rappers hit with RICO charges and is now representing Trump. Findling has denounced the Georgia's use of Georgia's racketeering law as, quote, racist. And I wrote earlier this year about my belief that he's cynically trying to use his reputation for war with Willis trying to protect Trump. I mean, that doesn't surprise me. But 2 things can be true at once. We can acknowledge that the breadth of Georgia's RICO statute appears to give prosecutors wide latitude to make dubious claims of criminality, particularly when it comes to black suspects. We can also acknowledge that RICO charges seem rather fitting for Trump and his co-defendants in this case. And I've seen the list of people who have been, besides Trump, all of his 18 cronies, and here's the list. It says here, this is from Axios.com. The number 1, Donald Trump. The GOP presidential frontrunner faces a total of 13 counts, including soliciting then Georgia House Speaker David Ralston and Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger to break their oaths of office with regard to overturn the election. And as I mentioned before, Trump called Brad Raffensperger in December or early January, I believe, he told Brad to find 11,000 plus votes so that he could the state of Georgia could overturn the state to him. It says here that Willis's probe looked into phone calls placed by Trump and his allies to Georgia state officials, efforts to organize a slate of fake electors in Georgia, and false claims of election fraud. Doesn't surprise me. The second on the list, Mark Meadows. That guy. The former White House chief of staff was a close ally, a Trump ally, and part of the January 2021 phone call to Raffensperger in which Trump told the Georgia Secretary of State to, quote, find the necessary votes for him to win. He was also in contact with members of Congress about efforts that could influence the election, Politico previously reported. Meadows visited Georgia in December 2020 while the state was carrying out an audit of absentee ballot signatures. Meadows is charged with violating Georgia's racketeering law, or RICO, and solicited the violation of oath by a public officer. I'm going to get back into Mark Meadows in a little bit. Now, Trump's legal team, John Eastman, a former Trump lawyer, championed the legal theory that Trump used to pressure his Vice President Mike Pence to overturn the election results. Between January 4th and January 7, 2021, Eastman sent 101 emails, mind you, people, 101, in which he discussed various methods to bar Congress from certifying the 2020 election results. Talk about corruption. Eastman testified that before Georgia lawmakers in December 2020 that they had, quote, the authority to replace the Democratic Party's slate of electors per CNN. Talk about... I will comment on that towards the end, what I think of this guy. Eastman is charged with 9 counts of violating Georgia's RICO Act, filing false documents, and conspiracy to commit impersonating a public officer. Doesn't surprise me. Here comes the one of the big ones. Rudy Giuliani. The former Trump's lawyer was among the witnesses compelled to testify before the Atlanta Special Purpose Grand Jury. Giuliani appeared before Georgia legislators in December 2020 outlining false claims of voter fraud that questioned Biden's victory in the state and urging legislators to appoint their own slates of presidential electors to certify a Trump victory. Like Trump, Giuliani is facing 13 charges, including conspiracy to commit forgery in first degree, violating the Georgia's RICO Act, and conspiracy to commit filling false documents. In regards to that guy, I mean, he lost all credibility when he started to defend Trump. That's just my opinion. I mean, as mayor of New York, he did some shady acts, but towards the end, he could say he did his job. But once he associated with that guy, he lost all credibility. And even Gabriel Sterling said that Rudy Giuliani lied. Even Brad Raffensperger said that. But hey, whatever. Another. This one right here is the one that I just listening to her interviews, just listening to when she appeared for the first time along with Rudy Giuliani and Jenna Ellis. This lady is Sidney Powell. Powell is a former attorney for the Trump campaign who helped spread baseless conspiracy theories about the 2020 election being stolen. Powell's facing 7 charges, including violating Georgia's RICO Act, conspiracy to commit election fraud, and conspiracy to defraud the state. Oh, man, I think I've posted videos or talked about how she said that she mentioned Venezuela's Hugo Chavez. Hugo Chavez was way dead before this shit happened, lady. What the fuck are you talking about, man? And she mentioned something about algorithm, like baseless conspiracy theories. What is it with these ultra right-wing QAnon right-wing nuts talking about these type of conspiracy theories, especially with this lady mentioning Hugo Chavez? Ridiculous, if you ask me. But hey, man, Sidney Powell is just batshit crazy, you know. Anyhow, okay, another one. Kenneth Chesbrough. Chesbrough is an attorney who was advising the Trump campaign. Is credited with being the first lawyer to suggest that slates of fake pro-Trump electors could try to get recognized by Congress on January 6th. Chesbrough is facing 7 charges, including 2 counts of conspiracy to commit forgery in the first degree and 2 counts of conspiracy to commit false statements in writings. That doesn't surprise me. No comment on this guy. Okay, Jeffrey Clark, a former Trump Department of Justice official. Clark supported Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Clark wrote an unsent letter in December 2020 to Georgia officials that slated that falsely claimed the Justice Department had, quote, identified significant concerns that would affect the state's 2020 election results. Okay. Clark is charged with 1 count of violating Georgia's RICO Act and 1 count of criminal attempt to commit false statements in writings. Okay. Off note, several of those named in the indictment, including Powell, Clark, Giuliani, Chesbrough, and Eastman, are widely believed to be one of Trump's 6 unidentified conspirators in the Justice Department's January 6th probe. Whoa, that's a new one on me. That's a new one on me. I did not know about that, but I thought even before all this shit happened, they were like the main ones. But it says here, quote, are widely believed to be one of Trump's 6 unidentified conspirators in the Justice Department January 6th probe. That's a new one on me, ladies and gentlemen. You know. Okay, now onto the Trump campaign. Pardon me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry. I sound terrible. I know. Now for the Trump campaign, Ray Smith, a Georgia-based lawyer who represented Trump in the post-election challenges in the state. Smith gathered witnesses to testify in hearings before Georgia lawmakers in December 2020 about alleged problems with the state's 2020 election, AP reported. Smith is facing 12 charges, including solicitation and violation of oath by public officer, conspiracy to commit false statements in writings, and conspiracy to commit impersonating a public officer. Michael Roman. Roman was a Trump campaign aide who believed a key role in putting forth slates of fake electors. Roman is facing 7 charges, including conspiracy to commit forgery in the first degree, violating Georgia's RICO Act, and conspiracy to commit false documents. That doesn't surprise me. Now onto the Georgia's fake electors. The first one, David Schaffer, however you want to pronounce that name. The former state senator and chairman of Georgia Republican Party, Schaffer was one of Trump's false electors in Georgia. Schaffer presented himself as the, quote, chairperson of the Electoral College of Georgia and filed a fake slate of 16 pro-Trump electors in December 2020, per the New York Times. Schaffer is facing 8 charges, including false statements in writings, forgery in the first degree, and impersonating a public officer. Talk about, you know, that's a pretty big track record, you know. Okay, now onto the other one. Sean Still. Let me see. What do they say about this guy? Let me see. A current Georgia state senator Still was another of 16 Republicans who signed an, quote, unofficial electoral certificate in Georgia stating that Trump had won the state and that they were Georgia's duly elected electors per AP. Still is facing Seven charges include forgery in the first degree, violating Georgia's RICO Act, and criminal attempt to commit finding false documents. The next one, Kathy Latham. Another fake GOP elector. Latham was the chair of the Coffee County Republican Party in Georgia. In January 2021, Latham allegedly helped grant unauthorized access to voting systems in Coffee County, Georgia, to Trump operatives per CNN. Latham is facing 11 charges, including two counts of conspiracy to commit election fraud and conspiracy to commit computer trespass. Oh, man. Okay, now to the Coffee County election breach. Oh, my God. Really? The first one, this one, oh my God, just even by the name of it. Scott Hall. A Georgia bail bondsman, Hall was involved in the scheme to illegally breach election equipment in Coffee County, Georgia. Hall, Latham, and Misty Hampton, quote, aided, abetted, and encouraged employees from the data solutions firm Sullivan Strickler to access voting equipment inside a Coffee County Board of Elections registration office per the indictment. Hall faces Hall faces 7 charges, including conspiracy to commit election fraud, conspiracy to commit computer invasion of privacy, and conspiracy to defraud the state. Misty Hampton, the former Coffee County electors director, Hampton was involved in the scheme to grant Trump supporters unauthorized access to election equipment in Georgia's Coffee County. Hampton is facing 7 charges, including conspiracy to commit election fraud and conspiracy to commit computer theft. Okay, now the others, there's other people who have been indicted. Robert Cheeley, a Georgia-based lawyer. Cheeley presented video clips of an election workers at a State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia, at a Georgia State Senate hearing after the election, alleging that voters were double or tripling counting votes. And if you mention that, Trump, when he made a phone call to Brad Raffensperger, he says that they were making like the vote 3 times. When Brad rebutted that was not true at all. And here's another one that I don't understand why she was not part of the branch where Rudy Giuliani is at. Jenna Ellis. Ellis appeared with Giuliani during the December 2020 hearing before Georgia lawmakers, during which false claims of election fraud were made. Ellis also authored memos claiming Pence had the authority to block Biden's 2020 victory when Congress met on January 6. Ellis is charged with violation of Georgia's RICO Act and solicitation of violation of oath by a public officer. Another one, Stephen Lee. But you know what? Before I continue with Stephen Lee, I don't understand why they never added Jenna Ellis along with Rudy Giuliani, because that's Rudy Giuliani's right-hand person. Which is pretty strange if you ask me, people. Okay, another one, Stephen Lee, an Illinois pastor. Lee was involved in an effort to intimidate Georgia election worker Ruby Freeman and other influence her testimony to the Fulton County grand jury. Lee allegedly traveled to Freeman's home and knocked on her door per the indictment. Oh my God. That's just like some mobster attitude right there. And I hope they put this fucker in jail for making this election worker uneasy. Just imagine, people. People would go at great lengths to keep this dude in power. That this dude went to go to Ruby Freeman's house to knock on her door and to intimidate her, just because they want to keep Trump in power. What kind of shit is that, people? That is just like some straight out John Gotti mobster attitude, you know? It's like the mafia attitude. I think they should put more charges against this guy. It says here that Lee is facing 5 charges, including 2 counts of criminal attempt to commit influencing witnesses. I hope they put more charges just to go to this lady's house, just to intimidate her and make her just be scared, just because they want to keep this fat fucking power. Anyhow, another one. Harrison Floyd, the head of Black Voices for Trump. Floyd was involved in the efforts to intimidate Ruby Freeman, another fucking piece of shit. Intimidate Ruby Freeman and made several attempts to contact her. Floyd is charged with violating Georgia's RICO Act, influencing witnesses, and conspiracy to commit solicitation and false statements or writings. Another cocksucker, Trevion Cuddy, the Cutie Cuddy, however you pronounce that. Please forgive me. Cuddy was allegedly recruited by Floyd to take part in an effort to intimidate Freeman. Cuddy traveled to Freeman's home in January 2021 and later met with Freeman at a police precinct, during which Floyd joined the conversation over the phone, according to the indictment. The indictment alleges that Cuddy presented herself as someone who could protect Freeman, but then pressured her to falsify to confess to election fraud. Cuddy is charged with violating Georgia's RICO Act, conspiracy to commit solicitation, false statements, writings, and influencing witnesses. Okay. The list is pretty big, people. So what's going to happen next right now? What's next? And this is, just thinking about it, like, they wanted to intimidate Ruby Freeman. That right there is what really angered me, as I said before. Trump really, really wanted to stay in power. Because I remember I'm watching him when he was doing his campaign. He says, I'm going to stay a second term, a third term, a fourth term. Like, he really wanted to stay in power. He said that he admired all these other countries that had, like, forever presidents, like in China, for example. He was joking around, but deep down, everyone knew that he really meant it. Can you explain that, people? I'm sorry. Can Trump really explain himself for doing, like, once he came into power, he undid a lot of things. A lot of things that President Obama left just because of, he was like, every time I remember, like, I think about this guy and President Obama, like, all the things he used to, like, to open his mouth on Twitter. He used to say that, I always use this as an example, and I will say it. He said that the Dow went down 1,000 points, and he said that I think Congress should start filing for impeachment charges against Obama. The other one that I always remember says, gas prices are high, fire Obama. I mean, this guy never shut the fuck up on Twitter, especially when it came to President Obama.